Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second?
I'll second.
Okay. Any discussion or questions? Okay. All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Opposed, say aye. Okay, we got a little bit of a lag here. Okay, that's great. Okay, thank you. Next is the approval of minutes from January 20th. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
I move to approve minutes as submitted.
Okay, and a second?
I'll second, Deb. It's
Okay.
Ann.
Okay. Any questions or discussion? Okay. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed by the same sign? Okay. All right, nobody opposed. Okay, great. Okay, so the next thing on our agenda is 7th Avenue North Utility Box Art Wraps. Just a quick reminder on these. This is part of a construction project on 7th Avenue North. The idea for having utility box wraps actually came from the traffic department. They liked them so much downtown that they wanted to include them in this project, and so they worked it into their budget. They also worked with the DCP, who, as you know, has done all of the utility box wraps and the bench wraps downtown. So the DCP did work with them, and they did a call for art and a selection. Our job here today is to, based on the images, the 3 images that we got in our packet, to make a motion to approve them based on their suitability for public art on city property. Chris, are you with us? Chris? No? Okay. Does anybody
Hi, Chair.
before we, yes.
He was just making.
I'm here.
Oh, okay. All right. So Chris is here. So if anybody's got any questions, or Chris, if you want to talk about the project a little bit, I guess I'm not sure what you came prepared to do, or if anybody's got any questions on the artwork. No? Okay, that's fine.
No, I just have the 3 submissions from the 3 artists, and like I said, we're just trying to make sure that they're appropriate, and if so, then we can move forward with the project for spring.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions for Chris? Okay. All right. Okay. So then I think if nobody has any questions or discussion, the recommended motion is on our memorandum, and it is to approve the art proposed by the DCP bid for the 7th Avenue North utility boxes. Would anybody like to make that motion?
Deb,
Yeah.
can you hear me?
Yeah.
So before we move to a motion, sorry, I was muted. I just had a question for Chris, if he wouldn't mind.
Okay.
I was just curious to know how many artists you received submissions from, and if artists were submitting multiples.
This is our 3rd call for art, and we always went through TAP. So it was their submission list. So yes, we did receive multiple pieces from multiple artists, but we probably received in this that round, I believe it was over 75 submissions. So there was an appropriate amount of submissions for this project.
Great. Thank you. I'm glad to see there's a lot of interest in participating. Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay. So can we move to the motion? Would anybody like to make the motion?
Yeah, this is Denise. I'll move that we accept.
Okay, Denise, okay. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I'll second.
Okay, any discussion? Okay, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed by the same sign? Great, thank you. And I would also like to say a great big thanks to the DCP for working with the city and helping us move art further out into our community. You guys are doing a fabulous service for us, and I appreciate it so much. And I certainly speak for the ACC when I say that. Thank you very much. Great job. Thanks.
Say, Deb, this is Melissa
Thank you,
Brandt.
Yes,
May I say something?
sure.
So, well, thank you for crediting the DCP, but it's also a partnership with Chris Schlepp with the Business Improvement District. So it's just a great partnership, and we love art, and we work together to make sure it happens. So thank you for this.
I'm so sorry. I always think you're the same entity, and you obviously are not. I apologize for that, Chris.
No worry,
Yes,
I want to
thank
make
you.
sure he gets credit too.
For sure. Absolutely. 100%. Thank you very much. And we look forward to working with you in the future, both of you.
Yes, thank you.
I'd like to make a comment.
Yeah.
We need to make, as the commission, we need to make a recommendation to the DCP and downtown bid about a variety of artists. The same artists are represented in this project as are represented downtown.
You know, John, I'm glad that you're on the.
Out.
Yep, I'm glad you're on the capacity building committee, because I think that's the kind of question that can be asked in that commission or committee. You know, what with call for artists and that type of thing, because that's going to kind of fall in that bailiwick. So I think that you are bringing up a concern that you're right in the right spot for. So thank you for that. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. But there was a selection committee that picked these. And I think when they do a selection, it's, correct me if I'm wrong, Chris, but the artist is not mentioned. Is that right?
When the selection committee, no, we focus on the artwork instead of the artist. And we focus on, the appropriateness of the pieces. And there is a criteria, 1 to 10 scale, and 5 different criteria that we look through. So we tend to more look at more than the artist. Yes, correct.
Yeah. So it's anonymous, basically, right?
We try to make it as anonymous as possible, yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Okay. All right. Okay. Was there anything else from anyone else? Okay. Well, in that case, I think we'll move on to our next item. Thank you again, guys, for all your work on that. I appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
So next, we're going to hear from staff about the work plan, carrying out the work plan.
Yeah, so thanks, Chair and Arts and Culture Commission. If I can, I have some slides to send up to the screen. If I can, if we can get that sent forward. There you go. So yeah, I have about I should say a 5-minute, hopefully 5-minute presentation, and then we can open it up for questions and answers. And the whole point of this is to kind of set you up as you start to do the subcommittees, work group committee work. And at the conclusion of this business meeting today, our commission meeting today, hopefully you all saw an email from staff yesterday that indicated, breaking out into 3 subcommittees for the last portion of this meeting. And so just, we can come back to that if there's any questions, but just to kind of set up as we go into the next phase of work. And we're doing the same presentation, just so you know, with our Human Relations Commission and our Native American Commission, and it's in an effort to try to kind of streamline some of our work and also make our work as effective as possible. And if I can just ask you guys to mute your microphones as you can, and then we can maybe open it up for questions at the end, if you don't mind. Thank you. And so, first of all, as we focus on what does the planning department do, some of this might look familiar to you, especially those new newer members who maybe just went through an orientation with us as you came into your positions. But, what does the planning department do? We focus on implementation, facilitation, and like big picture, long range strategic planning. And we'll send these slides out to you. I don't expect you to read through them all, but we're split into 2 divisions. We have 4 divisions, but there's 2 big subcategories, one being community development and the other being land use division. And the Arts and Culture Commission sits under the land use division work. And the staff does support 13 boards and commissions. The ones with stars are the ones we support. And so as we get into our work, it's really, you'll hear me say often, we want one work plan, not 13 work plans. And our whole goal is to integrate this work into the overall city strategic work and be as impactful as possible. So as you start working as subcommittees and as that information starts to ideas and information, what are we trying to do? You'll hear staff ask a lot, what is the what? And then we'll figure out the how. And a lot of times we'll start getting into how first. And if I see us and the other staff too, if we see you getting too far into the details and we're not clear on the what, we're going to keep pulling you back into that big picture to figure out what the what is. As we get into operations, that's when, that's where staff kind of does its magic as we start to get into operational stuff. In the planning department, there's very little that sits in the planning department when it comes to operations. When we talk about operations, that's where engineering, public works, solid waste, all of the departments that have crews and trucks and deeper resources than the planning department. And we figure out our partners like the bid on getting the work done, if you will. One of the things that we're trying to focus on for 2021 is that communication flow. Those darker blue arrows represent, kind of all the different ways ideas and public comments and community comes into the flow of work and idea sharing. But as you can see, it's a little bit of a feedback loop between the public at large, community members, our transparency. We all work for the 5 elected officials, the staff, as that information and direction comes down from the city commission, and then you all in the board. And so if we think about this as a feedback loop on what is our role, whether that's you all as appointed officials or us as staff. One of the things, so subcommittee as a concept and work groups is new for us. Like I said, the Native American Commission, the Arts and Culture Commission, and the Human Relations Commission are all starting this type of work as a structure and strategy to be more effective, if you will. You all have a precious 60 minutes once a month to gather, and that's a very short time for vetting out a new idea or fleshing out a work plan. And I know those that have been on the Arts and Culture Commission for a while have sat through many painful strategic planning meetings. And so one way to kind of simplify this is, as you start to work in subcommittees, how do you funnel a new idea? And so we kind of have a simple version that we like to say is 3 steps, basically. Working with your chair and vice chair. So as a commission member and as a small committee, you might think of a new idea. You want to vet that idea. We ask that you share that with the chair and vice chair. When the executive committee meets once a month with staff, that's basically the opportunity for staff and the committee to work together on, like, where does that idea go? How can we operationalize that? What kind of resources are needed? And then we bring that for the full Arts and Culture Commission at that next meeting to vote on, discuss, take action on, decision on. This is more of the extended version. How do we vet a new idea? And step 2, bringing that into clarity is, does it align to a work plan? How does it align to the City of Fargo's larger goals or the planning department's larger goals? What impact will it have on that? Does the Arts and Culture Commission or staff have the time, capacity to work on this item, or does it require trade-offs with other priorities? What resources, time, or money is required? So those are all, kind of elements that we vet ideas by. And so, like I said, at the conclusion of this meeting, you'll hopefully have a little bit of time to start some work plan groups. And just so you know, we're using subcommittee and work plan groups interchangeably. And it's a little gap that we found in terminology in our department this week. But just wanted to let you know that, the simple process again: discussion, decision, action. So as a reminder, and for the public, we have 3 subcommittees: capacity building, neighborhood development. We're really excited about this. We talked about it a little bit at last month's meeting, and I know each of you had direct interaction with Tracy and Deb, and so I won't spend any time on that. But, kind of the next step is figuring out what our goals and strategies are as we move forward as a collective. And I'm just going to share the Human Relations Commission as an example. And we kind of broke it down into 3 goals. And each of those goals are a subcommittee or a work group. And each of those groups are digging in to these goals and strategies. And their focus is discrimination and anti-discrimination practices, diversity and equity. And so we have an internally focused group, we have an externally focused group, and then we have, understanding of, formally protected rights and the gaps in that. And so you can see just 3 goals, 3 or 4 strategies, and then we get into the hows. But, we're really going to try to focus on simplicity. If you look at the Public Works master plan, there's 10 goals in there. And so we're hopeful that those 10 goals fit into those 3 subcommittees, but not all 10 goals can be maybe worked on simultaneously. So it's about prioritizing. I'm going to skip through some orientation on the department itself, so just ignore these. Maybe just as a reminder, though, our staff, we work with over 80 volunteers a month as we work with these 13 boards and committees, plus other expectations on our staff. And so we're really here for technical advice and assistance. We're here to support this work. We tend to focus on policy and as it understands that interrelationship with other issues. And but just so you know, we only have 30 days to publish a packet, if you will, for the arts and culture agenda. And so sometimes it might seem like we're working really slowly to get a new idea vetted and processed. But just wanted you to know that that's not really the intent. Local government just moves slow, as many of you know. As we look at how we prioritize, these are the types of things that our city commission asks us about, and this is the way we prioritize. Is there a mandate? Again, we are somewhat regulatory versus not. And is it recurring, or is this a one-time? Are we trying to operationalize? Is there a deadline? We work with a lot of national grants, and so a lot of times there's deadlines in our work plan. Are there multiple partners, stakeholders? Does it tie into an adopted strategy or master plan? Again, the Arts and Culture Commission sits fairly far advanced because we do have a master plan. Some of our other things like discrimination or equity and inclusion does not have a master strategy or master work plan. And so we're just in different places in that regards. And then who is that champion? So trying to figure out, again, we work for 5 elected officials who in turn coordinate with their constituents. And so understanding, is that in the mind's eye of our mayor, liaison city commissioner, Commissioner Strand, and really look for their guidance as part of that as well. So one of the things, I'll stop there before I go into budget. I just wanted to, are there any questions on that? And if not, we can, kind of pull into the budget process, because I think the next question that comes with idea is, we need money for that. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about budget and how we finance that, but maybe I'll stop there with that quick overview. Is there any questions, or do you want me to proceed? Anybody still there?
No questions for me.
Okay, great. I'll just keep proceeding then real quick. So you'll see in your packet, we referenced a budget memo. I will say that memo did not get included in your packet. So I'm just going to touch highlights on the budget process, forward a memo to you that gets in a lot more detail, and you'll have that for references. And basically, the city annual budget process is, in past years, so we have a change this year. And in past years, there was a direct allocation to arts and culture, if you will, through our social service funds. And but what tends to happen is that money gets isolated and not integrated into city work. And so one of the goals that we had to do, and we were basically mandated to do, is try to streamline some of our budgeting process, like the Native American Commission and the Human Relations Commission as well. And we had a lot of different financial practices happening, and we wanted to standardize something so it's clear for the staff, fits audit processes, as well as clear for our appointed and elected officials. And so one of the things you'll hear me say is about how to integrate this work into the city's overall budgeting process. And one way to do that is understand how the budget process works. And really the process kicks off now. It says May, but really now is when I start formulating the requests that go to the city commission and go to the finance committee, our mayor's committee, in May. And so I have to basically get my ducks in order and understand what your asks and needs are by May this year for 2022. And so we present that to the mayor's budget committee. Our liaison commissioner, John Strand, is close to that process. And then the mayor and the budget committee consider those requests, and then that's what gets drafted into the public budget for public hearing and adoption. And this year we identified, we have many partners that we work with, and we're trying to standardize our partnerships, if you will. And specific to the Arts and Culture Commission, the Arts Partnership is one of those key partners, and specific to the Native American Commission and Indigenous Association is one of those key partners. I'm still looking for key partners when it comes to refugee and New American work that our city focuses on, and I'm still looking for key partners when it comes to housing and homelessness supports that our department is a top priority for. So just so you know that I got some feelers out there right now. But what it does is the Arts Partnership, as you know, has a 20-plus year of partnership with the city of Fargo, and we've kind of standardized that with a direct line item in our budget of $90,000 for this year. If you've been on the commission for a while, you've seen an annual request come in front of you from the Arts Partnership, where we kind of negotiate and get into details about how they're using those funds. And, we, I guess, respectfully request we pull out a little larger level and understand that we're supporting this organization and this operation, and specifically to the Tri-Cities Arts Grant. Indigenous Association, we have a line item this year for $30,000. That's been an historical kind of allocation over the last 15 years. It used to be called the Native American Center, but we've kind of pivoted that work. And without their success, the city really falls down in its requirements and relationships with the Native community. And so these are two ways that we can start to look at the budget as direct line item requests, as opposed to, kind of micro budgets. The other stuff that we kind of budget, so this year we have board support, event support, and social service and arts fund. In the social service and arts fund, what's unique to the Arts and Culture Commission as opposed to the other boards is there is a $60,000 allocation in there for things like making public art, or that's what's funded in the past. I'm going to forget the name of the program, but the sponsorship program like Emily Wheeler's mural on the Skyway, or the bike racks, or other public, where we do the RFP and the selection process. And so so just so you know, we have $60,000 allocated for arts partnerships or creation. In the past, that's what funded the Red Ball. So just kind of keep that in the back of your mind. For other things like training or say there's like some of our other boards, like the Pride event, the Pride Festival in Island Park, the Human Relations Commission plays a big role there, or the MLK Day plays a big role there under the Human Relations Commission. That's where that event support category sets in. So the whole point of all this is to try to pre-allocate what we want to do for the following year, and there's not necessarily new urgent purchases happening in the current year. And so doesn't mean that things can't happen or changes happen in a year. So for instance, if there is a new budget request, just know there's a 90 to 100-day process. I go to the Finance Committee, and then if it's $10,000 or less, we look at our allocation and see if we can shift things around and do a line item budget request through directly between the Planning Department and the Finance Director. If it's larger than that, then we go to a Finance Committee, and if it's larger than that, it goes to the City Commission. So again, that's all I have for the budget, and I'm sure that leaves lots of questions, especially for those that have been on the board for a while, where you've been used to seeing like really micro purchases and micro allocations. Our whole point is to get you away from that micro look of budgeting and think bigger and more global. And so I'll just say our Human Relations Commission, they're going to see this tomorrow at their meeting, but when talking with their executive committee chair, they said that they felt like their budget was getting taken away from them. And I said, and they have a budget of $16,000 annually, traditionally. And I said, don't think of it as being taken away. Think of it as you're getting access to the full city budget as we think about how to operationalize this work deeper within the operation in the organization as a city. So I'll end there to see if you have any questions about that, and then look forward to a technical memo that would explain this in a lot more detail.
Does anybody have any questions for Nicole on the budget? It is quite different.
I just have a question about the 60,000 that she referenced. So
Okay.
is there a timeline on that? Like that's a budget that's available to us to do something with if we so choose, correct?
Correct. And so historically, yes, it does have to. That's a great question, Anne. We zero budget. We have a zero, how do they call it? Zero line budget. So basically at the end of the year, we have to be at zero or we lose the money. What's happened in the years past is boards and commissions start, kind of getting crazily fixated on, oh my gosh, we have to spend this money by the end of the year. Those purchases are going to be turned down anyway because it has to be strategic. And so the point is historically, and we'll need to figure out which category, which subcommittee wants to talk about this. But probably as we start to come forward in the next couple board meetings as the Arts and Culture Commission is thinking about the public art program itself. I'm trying to remember what we call that, the call up for artists. So we historically do that in the spring and with the fall installation. And so those range at about $15,000 a piece. And so historically we've done 2. We've tried to do 4, and that's way too many. And so we've done a bunch of different things. So if you can think about 15 of that in the past has gone through the public arts program. If that's something we still want to do, I think we need to talk about that. I think the capacity subcommittee is a place where I would probably recommend landing that at this point in time, because there's a lot of issues with how that public arts process has been working in the last few years technically, and it might be a year for us to consider what works and doesn't work as part of that process before we standardize it too much. So that's just one really quick thought staff has, not really married to that, but.
Other questions?
So I think the order of the subcommittee work is really kind of honing in on the goals, the work plan goals, and then understanding what resources we need for those is probably step one. And so when we spin off on our subcommittees, we have maybe some start of some questions. I think we're going to match Maggie, Megan, and myself to each of those subcommittees so we can be there for technical assistance and support as you talk amongst committees. Yeah.
Okay. I think this is kind of a new way of thinking about budget. It took me a while to kind of wrap my head around it. I'm used to working within a dollar amount, so this is going to be real different. But I also see where it can be really useful, you know, maybe in opening up our thinking a little bit. Everybody, well, how about, you know, we don't have to have our questions now. We can sure have them as they come up later too.
Absolutely. We're always here.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Was there anything else right now?
Nope. That's all I had.
This is not the end of it. Okay. Yeah. This isn't the last time we talk about budget. I can promise you that. Because I think that's one of the things that's going to happen with subcommittees is that we're going to get a lot more questions. Okay. So before we break into the subcommittees, I'm going to open it up for any public comments.
Chair, we do not have anybody here in attendance or on the phone.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody have other business? I'm going to say no. Okay, so our next meeting is scheduled for March 17th. Before we go to the breakouts, I think we're going to have a nice amount of time for that. Just a nice little touch base. But before we go to the breakouts, there's just a couple of things I wanted to mention. First off is when I spoke to you guys individually, and I was talking about the liaisons for the Arts and Culture Commission, my idea at the time was to assign a liaison to each commission or each subcommittee. And Nicole kind of pulled me back on that a little bit, rightly so, and said, you know, maybe it would be better if we left the liaisons as a resource for the entire commission, and also maybe let the liaison choose a path that they wanted to, you know, help the Arts and Culture Commission with. So I am going to back away from the statements that I made about assignments, because that's rightly so not the way it's going to happen. It's not the way we asked. That's not what we asked of you, so I'm not sure why I was so convinced that that's what we needed to do with liaisons. But anyway, I stand corrected, and we're going to do that a little bit different. Still planning on liaisons, though, and I now see them as an even greater resource than before, so that'll be good. So our committees are, and I also wanted to mention, Joe Williams has graciously agreed to lead the Capacity Building Commission, and as such, he will be joining the Arts and Culture Executive Committee sessions. So our biggest deal on those sessions is to plan the agenda and any ideas that have come up. So I'm glad that Joe's going to be able to, that all three committees are going to be represented. Tracy will be with the capacity building. I will be with neighborhood. So we'll all be represented. So it's a good form of communication. So anyway, unless there's questions for me before we do these breakouts, I think we can probably sign off for about 5 minutes and then sign back into your groups. But first, any questions from anybody? I feel like I didn't do that good of a job of explaining, but you know. Okay, well.
You did great.
I'm sorry?
You did great, Deb.
Cool. Sure, yeah. Okay, all right. Well, in that case, we'll sign off and we'll come back in about 5 minutes. And so that'll make it, see, it's 5:39. Let's come back at 5:45. Okay, all right. Thank you very much. I'll see the bulk of you next month. And I'll see you in a few minutes, in 5 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you.